Hello, girl. How are you doing today? Happy spring. Why am I gripping the mug like that? Hold on. I'm too self-conscious. We need to... Oh my gosh, I haven't sat and filmed a sit-down video in a while. And now I'm like... Hey, how you doing? We finished quarter 1, the first 90 days of the year. Bah! Like that. First quarter done. On to the second quarter. I did stay up last night until 1 a.m. finishing 2 books. And then I had this idea because when was the last time as an adult, as someone in your 20s, that you lost track of time doing something besides scrolling? For me, it's recently been reading. And last night, I read 1 book and it ended so well. It was such a big culmination of one of the other series, like tying into this series. And then I finished my second book because it was making me cry. It was so good. And then I looked at the time and it was like 1:37. And I was like, I usually like to go to bed before 11 p.m. And I think I had gotten in bed at like 9:30, 10. So I just stayed in bed and read for 3 hours and time went like this. And I was like, wow, when was the last time that time got away from me? And now I'm into reading. My cousin sent me this funny thing that was like Asians post-grad get into the 4 R's. They get into rock climbing, running, reading, or raving. I had my raving era first post-grad. Now I'm in my reading era. I tried to get into running, but it's just not my thing. I'm more of a Pilates, dance, yoga kind of girl. And rock climbing, I went rock climbing. I think I've been rock climbing twice in my life. Once was on a date. Well, technically that was bouldering. And then once on a cruise ship. It's not really my thing. Maybe it will be in the future, but right now I am in my reading phase, wrapping up this quarter, or last quarter, quarter 1 of 2026. I read 11 books.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's crazy for me because I didn't read my first book like cover to cover until I was 24 years old. I grew up, I hated reading. Like if they made us read in school, I feel like in elementary school, they'd be like, okay, you have to read like 25 pages a day or 25 pages a week, whatever it was. You had to like read something and then it was like have your parents sign off. Honey, I'm a child of 2 immigrant parents that were hardworking. Well, one of them was hardworking. One of them was just there. But I was very independent at a young age. You, my first generation kids can agree, like any homework or anything that needed to be signed off was signed off by me. I think I learned how to sign off on checks at a young age. And I had to like teach my parents how to do checks. Like the name goes here, writing out the number goes here, the memo is this, the signature is here. So when we were doing reading and they would make your parents like sign off that you read, my parents didn't have time to check to see if I was reading or doing homework or anything. I had to take care of myself. So I would just sign off on the thing, and I just always hated reading. In middle school and high school, I was such a Spark Notes girl. I don't know if Spark Notes is still a thing considering there's like AI now. But back in my day, there was the Spark Notes and it would like summarize books to a T. And as long as I showed up in school and I listened to the discussion, I didn't really need to read books to get passing marks. So didn't read at all. Even in college, I hated reading. I didn't even go to a library until my junior year. And I only went to the library to just hang out with people because it was like COVID era. And I was like, okay, let's just go hang in the library, I guess. Like might as well go to the library. So that's just context. So when you're like, oh my gosh, she read 11 books in 3 months. This is new for me. I'm in new territory. I'm kind of loving it. I did put into chat all the books that I read though, so that I could give you like a summary of what I've read and the themes, kind of like a Spotify Wrapped situation. So I read 11 books, quarter 1. I've read over 6,000 pages in 90 days. That's about 70 pages per day. That's an average. Obviously, there are some days where I don't read at all. And then some days I'm sitting for like 3, like last night, like 3 hours went by and I was reading. So on average, I read about an hour a day, 70 pages a day. I would say I'm an intermediate reader. I'm pretty engaged. I can read pretty fast. My God, I never thought I was a fast reader. But sometimes when I would like I remember me and this person that I used to be friends with, I'd be like showing them something and I'd be like, okay, I'm ready to move on. And she's like, wait, I barely just read the first 2 sentences. And I was like, Also, all the kids that read as kids ended up having glasses. Comment below if this is true, or just confirm in your own head if this is true for me. If you read when you were a kid, you had glasses, but the propaganda was like, if you watch TV, kids that watch TV have glasses. I grew up just watching TV. I loved watching TV. I never read. A bitch does not have glasses. I had 20/20 vision. Like, still to this day, I can see very clearly. And everyone that I know that used to like to read as a kid has glasses. Am I wrong? Rarely am. But anyways, reading 70 pages in an hour, it says that I am a solid engaged reader, but fast readers can actually read 100+ pages in an hour. I feel like sometimes if I'm really in the story and I have already built the characters, I'm well familiar with the universe of the book that I'm reading, I feel like I could do 100 pages in an hour too. I'm just I've always been above average, honey. I'm just faster than most people in learning things, in reading, all of that stuff. So let's see. Let's just go through the books that I read. Okay, so like I said, I've never been a reader. I read my first book when I was 24. The first book that I read like cover to cover was called Breathe, or Breath. I forgot if it's called Breathe or Breath. I think it's by James Nestor. It has like a yellow cover and it's about the lost art and science of breathing. And I was actually recommended this book in an entrepreneur community that I was in the beginning of 2024. When I was 24, fun fact, I get to be the age of the year minus the last 2 weeks of the year. So my birthday is December 16th, but basically 1999. So basically whatever the year is, like 2025, 2026, I get to be 26, 2024, 24. So I was in this entrepreneur community, and this guy had recommended this book about the lost art and science of breathing. And for some reason, it just kind of caught my attention. I think maybe that's when I was starting to exhibit and experience more severe symptoms of anxiety. And I've always experienced symptoms of anxieties and panic attacks. Bitch, I've had like 1,000 panic attacks in my lifetime. Me and panic attacks, like, I kind of know what to do when I'm having a panic attack now. But that book was recommended to me. So the first year of reading in 2024 for me was all like self-help books because I felt like I needed to help myself. And then from there in 2025, last year, my cousin actually recommended me A Court of Thorns and Roses, ACOTAR. A Court of Thorns and Roses. Okay, I was just making sure it wasn't A Court of Roses and Thorns, but ACOTAR, the tar, Thorns and Roses. That, hello, as you can see, I pulled this out because these are the books that I read this year. I'm giving you a little backstory before we get into what I've read for Q1 of 2026. She recommended me ACOTAR. She was like, I'm reading this fantasy book. I think you would really like it. Like, you should get into it. And my cousin was like, I want someone to talk to about my fantasy books. And I was like, yeah, okay. Like, I'd never read fantasy before. Like, who was I was just reading a collection of self-help books. And I think the first year I read different self-help books, I emotionally connected with Women Living Deliciously by Florence Given. She just was putting my experience into words, and I sobbed and I laughed at that book. And it's the first time, once you have that emotional connection where you laugh and you cry in a book, I feel like that's like your book virginity being, introduced. Just like sex. You don't know how much you enjoy the pleasure of sex until you actually have sex and have your first O. And then once you get it, you're like, oh, this is great. Like eating candy, eating a burger, eating pizza. Like, once you do it, you're like, I'm hooked. This is it. I love this part of the human experience where I get to enjoy and pleasure myself in these things. And so once I read that Florence Given books in my self-help year, I think I read maybe just a handful of books. I don't remember reading that many books, and I sure as heck was not reading before going to bed the way that I started once I got into ACOTAR. So my cousin tells me to read this book. She recommends it because she's like, I want someone to talk to about this. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I don't really read fantasy. The literal next day or something like that, I go to Costco and I see the book set of this book that she just recommended me. And I was like, whoa, what are the chances of that? And the whole book set at Costco was only like $50-$60. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to get a pack of Legos at Costco. Love getting Legos at Costco, by the way. And I'm going to pick up this book set. Like, these are going to be some hobbies that I'm going to start to take up. So I start reading A Court of Thorn and Roses. It's the first book in the ACOTAR series by Sarah Maas. Huge cult following. Oh, what got me into reading it too was not only my cousin's recommendation, but the way she sold it to me was like, you would really like this book series because the guy in the series I feel like is your type. Like, he's the bad boy villain. And I was like, girl, I'm not into the bad boy villain. What are you talking about? Me being like 3 years celibate. And she's like, no, I feel like your type is the villain because a superhero will like discard his girl to save the world, but the villain will like light the world on fire to save his girl. And I was like, okay, wait, now I'm intrigued. Now, let me see. I think you might be onto something. I think that is my type. So I pick up the book series. I'm kind of intimidated. The first book is like 400 pages. Coming from someone who's only read like self-help books that were maybe like 200, 300, I feel like more in the 200 page range. So getting a book twice in size that was like fantasy too, I was like, I feel intimidated, but here goes nothing. Night 1, I read the book. 2 chapters in, I'm like, whoa, I'm hooked immediately. I finished the whole entire box set in a month. Each book I just zoomed through. I sobbed so hard at the finale of it. I just felt so seen throughout the whole entire series too. And I haven't been feeling very connected to people in my life. I've been feeling very isolated in the transition that I'm going through. So to read a book where I feel like characters are feeling what I'm feeling, it just makes me feel seen in such a beautiful, delightful way. So I finished that whole series, and then I jumped straight into Throne of Glass because, hello, go to your Sam's Club. And they had the box set series there of Throne of Glass. So I was like, let me get into it. So last summer, I started ACOTAR, finished that in a month. Then I started Throne of Glass towards the end of the year. Now, 10 minutes into the video, let's get into what I've read Q1 of 2026. I just had a brain fart to think about like what in the world year is it? So I got the actual physical box set. Yes, my chairs are on wheels. And I started this year reading Empire of Storms. So Throne of Glass is an 8-book series, I believe, if you count the prelude. So at the beginning of this year, I was on Empire of Storms. Then I got into Tower of Dawn, and then I got into Kingdom of Ash. So this completes the Throne of Glass series. So good. Empire of Storms ends with the main character. It ends so good. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to put spoilers in this in case you want to read this. But Empire of Storm ends with the character having this big kind of like plot twist. It leaves off on a huge cliffhanger. And then Tower of Dawn switches into a different part of the story with different characters. And at first with Tower of Dawn, I was like, well, like I want to know what happens to the main character in this plot twist. I want the plot reveal. But then the more I got into Tower of Dawn, there are some characters from the prelude that tie in. And then there's this epic love story and this adventure and also kind of this murder mystery. That just had me breeze through. And then I got into Kingdom of Ash. Y'all, this book, can you see like the way that I'm holding this? Like this is stretching. I don't know how much, like my hand could maybe only hold a little bit much. And that's really straining the muscle that I have right here. This book is almost 1,000 pages, 980 pages. This was insane reading this. There would be times where in the middle, it's not too bad because you can evenly distribute it. But in the beginning or the end, to have one hand hold so little and then this other hand stretched for the gods, I had to take breaks holding this book. Loved how this series ended. It was epic. Throne of Glass is epic. If you read ACOTAR, the fantasy love series, it has a lot of romance. It has a lot of themes of like women empowerment and women choosing themselves and just like fierce, like cunty main characters, which I'm like, hello, I mirror seeing my own reflection. The ACOTAR had a lot more romance, and this one has like a little bit of romance, but it's not as like smutty and sexy. This is more adventure based. So after I finished this book was 980 pages. I was like, I think I need to get a Kindle. because I can't keep buying huge books like this the way that I'm breezing through. Oh yeah, because I finished this like in a week, and this is what is this, like an 800-page book or something like that? Oh, 660. That's why I finished it so quick. But I was like, I'm breezing through books, and I think it would be easier and faster if I got a Kindle. So I finished these probably early February. I had finished this series, and I was like, okay, that was a lot. The Sarah J. Maas universe, her books, especially Throne of Glass, is very universal. It's very universe building. It's not like a cute little fun, well, let me get into this. Like, you need to be engaged. There are like different characters, there are different settings. You were like building this whole thing in your head with that book. And there are themes of like war and, it's just very big in that sense. And after I read that, I was like, I need a break from fairies. I need a break from witches. I need a break from war. Like, I just need something anchored in everyday human living and make it romance. So I go into ChatGPT and I'm like, I really liked the ACOTAR series. I really love Sarah J. Maas' style of writing. I had tried reading The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. It's another fantasy that people kind of like, I've seen circulated, recommend. And I couldn't get into Holly Black's writing style. It's a bit more flatlined, whereas like Sarah J. Maas is so like heart driven. It's so emotional. It's so colorful to me. And then Holly Black's writing style was just to me, it was very dry. It was very flat, and I couldn't get into The Cruel Prince. So I put that in ChatGPT saying that like I didn't like Holly Black's style of writing. I loved, obsessed Sarah J. Maas writing style. Mass? I don't know. And recommend me books that are romance themed, but that can kind of alleviate my brain from this big, intense universe building. Like, I just need a breath, but I want to keep building or keep reading. So then I got this cute Kindle. Guys, look at this cute little cover. It has a little stand so you can like put it. This is so good for like when I'm eating and I want to like sit and read at a cafe. It also has this little strap for your hand. And then my actual Kindle, I got the pink one. Of course, hello, everything's pink around here. And ever since I've got this Kindle, I got it towards like the end of February, mid-February. I have read 8 books on here. It makes reading like this. I have the Kindle Unlimited subscription. I think it gives you 3 months free when you first buy the Kindle, and the Kindle Unlimited subscription is basically like the Kindle library. So they have books that you can read for free, like you borrow them, like, which means you just get to read them for free until you don't have the subscription anymore, and then the books go away from your library. But then also with the Kindle Unlimited subscription, it's like $11.99 per month, so like $12 something with tax. You can buy books for cheaper. So the first book that I got into, I got recommended on ChatGPT. Authors that I got recommended that are similar to Sarah J. Maas's writing style, where it's very emotional, there's humor, but there are also moments that like make me cry, was Emily Henry and Abby Jimenez. And one of the first titles that I was recommended by Emily Henry was Book Lovers. Hold on, let me bend down and grab this for you real quick. The slippers that I just bought myself for, I don't know when I bought myself this. I'd be buying myself things all the time. It's called Book Lovers. And I was like, wait, if my slippers are called Book Lovers, like maybe I should read the book Book Lovers by Emily Henry. And so I bought that one. I read it. It was a cute little 400 or something like that. And it was just cute. It was like, romance story. Girl meets guy. Girl has a bunch of walls up. They don't even live in the same place. But then like epic, cute love story. Read that one super quick. Then after that one, I got into the Part of Your World trilogy by Abby Jimenez. Ugh, girl. Okay, this trilogy is a part of the Kindle Unlimited membership, so they were free. I got to read this trilogy for free. Girl, this one it goes Part of Your World, Yours Truly, and Just for the Summer. And it's like a little trilogy in the sense that like some of the characters overlap, but each book goes into the love story with like real ass life themes of mental health, of trauma, in each character. Yours truly, the middle one, girl, that one fucked me up. That one, have you ever had a book just wreck you? Like, the second book wrecked me. I was sobbing so hard. The themes of love and how like love always shows up, and if love fails to show up in a way that makes you feel like safe and protected, then it's not love. When I was like bawling my eyes out, like my dad never loved me. It was crazy, but it was so good. 10 out of 10 recommend that trilogy. Throne of Glass, I also recommend if you're into like if you're up for the adventure of a huge universal building, action-packed, witches, fairies, gremlins, goblins, because it's not actually gremlin and goblin. She has like different names for them in the book, but like different characters in a fantasy world. I would give the whole Throne of Glass series a solid like 8 out of 10 if you're into that adventure mode. Book Lovers by Emily Henry. It was cute. It was cute. Like, I don't have any critiques for it. I would give that one, I think it was good. I would give that one maybe like a 9 out of 10. Part of Your World trilogy, 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. That one was so good. So then I get into Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez, because same thing, it's free included in the Kindle Unlimited subscription. I hated Say You'll Remember Me, but it's a personal tizzy that I have with it because it's a great love story, but it has the, what would you call that, theme or like trope of we're perfect for each other and like we're meant to be, but I'm choosing my family over this love. And the reason why it just triggered me is because her mom in the book has Alzheimer's, and she's like choosing her mom over this epic love story. And I'm like, forget the mom with Alzheimer's. Put the Alzheimer's bitch down. I fucking hate Alzheimer's because my dad has Alzheimer's. So I know that pain and that grief of watching someone slowly die in front of you to the point where they don't even care if you're alive or dead anymore because they can't even remember. They can't even remember to like take a piss themselves, so they start getting infections. It was a little bit too touchy, a little bit too soon for me. That's the only reason why I hated Say You'll Remember Me. I think the love story was great. That's like my personal beef, my personal trigger with the book. So that one I hated. But she just released a new one called The Night We Met, which I stayed up till 1 a.m. last night finishing, and it's so good. The Night We Met, again, some of the characters overlap, but it's a completely different love story with different, like, the side characters in Say You'll Remember Me then become like the main character in the second book, The Night We Met. Same thing with her trilogy. You kind of like know the universe of characters, but then you like dive into their story, which I love. And The Night We Met is so cute. I love reading stories about people in their like late 20s and early 30s finding love, because it makes me feel seen, because I'm in my late 20s and I've never been in love, like really, really in love on some like healthy, actual love. Because I feel like I had to love myself before I could love another person. But now I'm here and I just haven't, I love myself, but I haven't experienced loving another human being or allowing another human being to love me. And that primal instinct to be like territorial, like a woman to be territorial over her man, but then also a man to have that primal instinct of like wanting to protect and like make his mate's life easier. Oh, I love reading about that. I'm not out there actively dating, but I feel like my reading of all my romance books is my market research, and just who even knows if that exists out there. But I guess if I think it and I believe it hard enough, I can manifest it and make it come true. So one of my goals this year is to be like to explore the side of myself that comes out in a romantic relationship. And while I'm not doing dating apps, I'm not being set up on dates or anything like that right now. But what I can do to inch towards my goal is to read about it. And I love it. I sob, I laugh. It just makes me feel so good. It makes me feel hopeful and complete. And then after the Abby Jimenez books, I'm looking over at my list to see what else I read. Okay, after I read the Abby Jimenez books, I was like, okay, cute. I'm in this like la la land. Then Sarah J. Maas goes on Call Her Daddy and says that she's announcing ACOTAR 6 and 7 later this year. And then the people on my TikTok For You page, because by the way, when you say everyone on the internet is doing so and so, you realize you're only in like a small bubble on the internet, right? Like not actually everyone on the internet. You know what I mean? That was a high thought I had recently that I was like, wait, let me expand my consciousness. People on my For You page were then telling me you've got to read Crescent City, the series that Sarah J. Maas has. So she has ACOTAR, A Court of Thorn and Roses. She has Throne of Glass, and then she has Crescent City. And at first I was taking a break from Crescent City because she does little previews at the end of her books. And I had read a little bit of Crescent City and I was like, I'm not vibing with this. Like, it's not for me. And I will say the first 100 pages of Crescent City, the first book, it's tough. It is really hard to get through. And even in the second book that I just finished, I would say 75% of the way through, like 3/4 of the way through, the story drags. It loses me a little bit. So there are some parts where you kind of have to like fight and claw your way through in Crescent City. But the first book ended really well. I was so excited to start the second book. And then I finished the second book last night. And the way that the second book ends, again, I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to put big spoilers out there. But I will just say Crescent City does loop into ACOTAR. And that's why people on my TikTok page were telling me you've got to read Crescent City before ACOTAR 6 and 7 comes out later this year. So I picked up Crescent City 1, finished that, finished the second book last night. Like I said, the beginning of Crescent City 1 is hard to get through. 3/4 of the way through Crescent City 2 is a little bit tough to get through. They're really big, intense, universal building books, but so worth it. Push through. At the end of the second book last night, I was in bed like, it's so good. So those are the 11 books that I read quarter one. I read over 6,000 pages. I had chat do a little like Spotify Wrapped thing. I was like, okay, I'm gonna make this for a little YouTube video, girl. Like, can you tell me maybe the theme so I can let people know like what themes am I exploring here, the books that I love? Girl, it literally says your Q1 reading wrapped core themes are love that heals, but first breaks you a little. Oh my God. Me, my life. It's such a reflection of what I'm personally going through. So it's a huge thread across my list of books that I read this year is that love is a healing force and that characters aren't just falling in love. They're recovering, they're rebuilding, and they're softening, which is very on par with where I'm at in my life right now. And it's giving, I didn't know I deserved this kind of love until now, which I feel like is myself. And these aren't just cute love stories. They're emotional depth over like surface level romance. That's just me, girl. I'm coming to realize that my personality and where I'm at in life right now is that I am just like a deep depth in person. If we were to have a surface level conversation versus if we can't crack the surface in our relationship to go deep down, the relationship to me just isn't fulfilling. So these love stories, they're not just like cute little romance. They explore trauma. They explore anxiety and grief and self-worth. And I'm like, me. Literally me and everything I've been going through if you've been following along through these videos. This part got me. It said you were reading books that feel you back. Yes. Because no one in my life, no one that I know of, no one that I watch, I consume, there's no representation of what I'm going through in my life. And so to read about it in a fictional character way just makes me feel seen and not so isolated. There's also recurring themes of strong women choosing themselves. Hello. Women reclaiming their power, their voice, their agency. It's not just for survival, but for self-definition, which I'm like, this is it. This is me. There are themes of like light and darkness, internal and external. There are big battles with war, but there are also inner demons that they're facing, identity struggles. The real war comes from inside, as well as there being like literal demons in some of the stories. And I feel like I've been to war and back. And I love that contrast, that juxtaposition of the light and the darkness. I feel like I go I feel like you kind of know me from now, but this might be your first video for me. where I go deep and I explore vulnerable topics, but then I'm also able to like sprinkle it with light and humor, and I just love that. Another theme, humor as a survival tool. Hello, I really did laugh in a lot of these books, and I also did cry. Like, life is very hard, and here's some real ass shit, and also here's a little joke to like comfort you in the realness and harshness that can be the world. And then there's found family and unexpected support systems in both the romance and fantasy. People finding their people in unexpected places. All about like chosen family and how that just really hits deep emotionally for me, because I just feel like I've walked away from a lot of basically my whole entire life and all these relationships so I can make room for people that I actually want to choose out of alignment and not out of like empathy and potential. So yes, it was very much a great escapism for reading. Right now I'm going to get into the third Crescent City book. That's what's starting quarter 2 for me. Maybe I'll give an update at the end of quarter 2 of what books I read. I'm like, if I keep up reading 11 books per quarter, let's say like 10 books each quarter, at the end of this year, I will have read 40 books. Coming from someone who just last year started reading, I am kind of amazed and surprised by how much I love reading. Like, I want to sit with someone on the couch and just read together and like laugh and gasp and cry together, even if we're reading different books. So wholesome. I love some of these books to talk about like the partners like reading together and they have a shared like hobby and interest and passion for similar books. And I'm like, oh, I would love that. I would love to share that with someone. So I'm gonna share it with you. And it says the last theme that I have is escapism with emotional substance. I had a mix of like epic immersive fantasy worlds, but it's also very grounded in real life romance. There was a big emotional payoff and it helps me process through the story. It does. Seeing it portrayed in a book and having that like universe that I get to escape to like in my head once I start reading, it does help me process what I'm going through. So if you are also processing grief, if you have also been betrayed, if you also feel like you didn't love yourself and now all of a sudden you love yourself and your life is very lonely, maybe you'll like some of these books. Girl, get into it. Emotional depth, strong female characters choosing themselves. It was kind of like therapy, but in book form. This is funny. This is the last thing I'll share with you, and then we'll end the video. If your reading list were a Spotify genre blend, it would be emotionally devastating but hopeful core. Plus soft love and chaos plus fantasy warrior energy. I feel like emotionally devastating but a hopeful core describes me. Like, I am so emotionally devastated from the disappointment of people in my life and just my life in general at this point. And also, I do have like some hope. Some days I have more hope than others. Today you caught me on a little bit of a less hopeful day, but there's still like a sprinkle of hope left in me, because when all hope ceases to exist in me, that's when I want to die. It happens. Yeah, so those were the books that I read for quarter 1, 2026. I enjoyed them. I'm going to keep reading. Like I said, my start of quarter 2, which you're going to see this video in the beginning of quarter 2, I'm starting Crescent City, the third one. And then I'm just going to patiently wait until October for ACOTAR 6 and 7. I think at the beginning of October, though, maybe the end of September. Ooh, maybe fall would be a good time. I'm going to reread ACOTAR before 6 and 7 comes out, because I read that 11. Well, I read 11 books this year, plus the other 5 books there. So I read that series 16 books ago. So I'm like, okay, not all the plot, story, and characters are fully, there. So I kind of want to reread that before 6 and 7 come out. But yes, I love reading. I'm into reading as someone that started reading at 24 years old. Also, like, maybe what you can take away from this is don't be discouraged from your past. Like, I never thought I could read. I was so intimidated by a 400-page book. And now I can read 1,000 pages. I can look at a 1,000-page book and be like, okay, it's going to strain my hand a little bit. Oh, wait, but that's why I got a Kindle. I can get into reading and read for hours. It's so safe. It feels like an emotional safe place for me to be dropped in to one of my books. And if you want to follow along with what I'm reading in real time, you can follow me on Goodreads. I think my username is just Katie. I don't know. Katie post at it, figure it out, and put a little screenshot here. So if you're into reading and you want to just follow along with what I'm reading on Goodreads. Goodreads is like a social media platform for reading. And because I read on my Kindle right now, when I finish a book, it immediately has me like rate the book that I just read. And I kind of like that. So then we can see like, what books are we reading? What books are you recommending me? What are you currently reading? What have you read this year? So we can follow each other on Goodreads. I don't really check it that often. But yeah, if you just wanted to see what is she reading, I hope you're reading. And if you're not reading and you want to get into it, I recommend ACOTAR. I loved it. It hit home for me and it got me into reading as someone that's never read fantasy, as someone that's never even read. I never read a fiction book before this. I'd only read a couple self-help books before it. I feel like just lit something inside of me and had me going. So yeah, get into reading, girl. It's good for your soul, I think. Okay, see you in the next one. Happy reading.